Hello and welcome to another episode of the Construction Corner podcast. I'm Dillon, I'm your host. And today, guys, I want to talk about remote employees versus on-site employees. And then obviously a lot of you guys in construction have your field personnel. So the big differences that we want to talk through and talk about today as we go through this are you're going to have really in the new day and age, there's a good chunk of people that want to work remotely. There's a chunk of people that obviously in construction are going to be on site and in the field. And then there's going to be your office staff. Now, there's pros and cons to all of this, and a lot of it has to do with your culture, the types of people you want, and then who you are really as a business owner and how you want to run your organization. The thing that I can say is there are certain types of people that are really, really good at being able to be remote employees, right? The self-starters, the guys that work a ton of hours anyway, no matter what you tell them, they're going to work a crazy amount of hours and they are fine to be remote employees. Those are the self-starters and really just the go-getters, right? Your culture also has to be really set up to do remote work. Some people are not meant to manage people remotely and showing up because it's a different level of like checking in on people. You've got to, instead of just dropping by, having a conversation and then like almost offhandedly asking what's going on or how a project is or an update or whatever, you have to just kind of bug people, right? You've got to send them an email, send them a message, follow up with them more so than just your presence reminds them of the things that they need to do for the day as a manager, right? Of people. So remote employees, remote work is definitely a different skill set to manage people than being on site. And then there's always the cultural elements of on-site employees and what that looks like. To really rebuild or build a strong culture, I'm a big fan of having people on site in the office because it's the seeing of how you personally work, right? As the owner, the manager, whatever, and setting your standards. It's a lot easier to transfer that type of work ethic, that type of knowledge, that type of hustle onto other people or whatever your culture is, right? It's a lot easier to transfer that from them seeing you as the owner manager come into the office, how long you're there, what you're working on, to answer questions for folks. And especially in the beginning, that's really big for us and why we're bringing out 2 interns for the summer here is to really help to build that culture, to be able to train them, to be able to improve or to impart that knowledge on them while they're here for the summer, and to just set the pace for work ethic and that whole type of thing. Now, it is going to be a really interesting test because just how the cards fell, the interns are going to come out. We have them start on a Thursday, and this is one of those tips that I got from Ann Laguzza, who's been on the podcast way back in the, I think, pre-100 episodes. But Ann talked about having your new employees start on a Thursday so that you're able to, go through all the new stuff, update them, give them a bunch of information. Instead of overwhelming them, over the week, they get 2 days and then they're able to kind of digest that new start or whatever from that Thursday and Friday, take it in over the weekend, and then start fresh. So they're going to start on a Thursday, and then I actually fly out on a Tuesday for my wife's birthday to go back to Detroit for the week. So one of those things that they're going to start be in the office for really 3 days with me, and then they're going to kind of be on their own for 4 days. So we'll see how they do and if they pass the test of like actually working while no one's watching for 4 days. But it'll be good, right? It's going to be a good test. And like, hey, you're adults, you're over 18, figure it out, guys. Here's keys to the office, don't let the place burn down. So a lot of that kind of stuff is going to be really fun, really interesting. But that's why we are having people on site, kind of breeding that culture, start to do it and do that with our interns. And then, the same thing as we move forward, right? For key markets, key offices, key guys like that, right? They can be quote remote to the mothership, but we'll have offices as we open new offices across the country, a key office leader in that, and then they can bring in people. They'll be in the office, that whole type of thing. But personally, it's just a much stronger way to build culture, build everything that you want your company to be is so much easier, and those values are going to stick harder and longer by people being in person and in the office than working remotely. That's just the nature of people, that a lot of things that you do rub off on people a lot easier when you're in person than they can remotely. Because remotely, they're only going to see you for the hour or whatever that you're on a Zoom call. They're not going to see every moment that you're in the office and around them, which is a total different type of environment to be in when you have that relationship with your team, right? Being around them, being physically in person just creates a whole different standard, and you can set higher standards being in person. Then ultimately they can work remotely. They can do other things long term. But if you really want to build a strong culture, I believe doing that on site and in person is the best way to do that. Other companies, sure, they've built remote cultures, but you look at some of the strongest cultures, those are all in-person companies. So again, there are types of people that can go work remotely, that can, set things up and be in an RV, and do the whole Starlink bit. But for the majority of us, being in the office is the best way that we get work done. You're not distracted by your kids or family or the dog or the mailman or whatever else, right? Being in the office is really the best way to be productive and a good member of the team. The next thing really that I want to talk about today is when it comes to design build projects and really setting that standard, right? When you talk about standards, when you talk about people being in the office, when you talk about communicating with clients, right? What's the best way to do that? Well, the faster that you can respond to anybody, the better off you're going to be. And I think that is one of the things that really separates vertical design services from other engineering firms is just our speed to respond to guys. I got an email today from one of our clients, gave him a call maybe 30 minutes after he sent the email, and he was like, man, this is incredible. I'm used to not hearing back from an engineer for a week, and you called me in the same day, let alone the same hour. So things like that are really what allows us to separate from other competition, is just simply the ability to get back to people and do that quickly. Give them phone calls, respond to an email, anything like that really is what sets us apart from other contractors and really engineering firms. The other thing that I've gone through here lately is something as simple as really our lighting schedules, right? So the lighting vendor put out basically a request for a quote, right, to all the distribution guys. And what they had and what we had on our drawings didn't quite match. So spending the time on behalf of the contractor to reconcile those counts and quantities, and we had some basically split up of where budget allocation needed to go for some of those light fixtures. Some needed to go to an adjacent property and basically be segmented on the quote for the adjacent property. And then all the other lighting fixtures needed to be part of the actual building project, and anything on site relative to it was allocated to that project. So we had to split the quote for it as well. And so really helping our contractors out to make sure that, hey, our model numbers align, our counts and quantities align, our placement of those, and then the divvying up of the quote, those things were aligned too. So really trying to go that extra mile for our contractors. Obviously anybody could do this themselves, but to really go through, audit what's been sent out and see the reasons why people are coming up with incorrect pricing, misallocation of quantities or fixtures, and just helping them to clear that up, right? It seems really simple in some terms, but it's one of those really important things that when you're able to segment and do that on behalf of our contractors and our clients, it really helps them out and helps everybody in the process to make sure money's going in the right place for the right things. So again, it's things like this that are easy to talk about, but when you have your team in the office and they're actually seeing you do this type of work, that they're hearing you on the phone with clients, with contractors, with our partners, how you talk to them, right? Those kind of indirect moments, the moments that you can't really manufacture, right? It's just who you are and how you approach clients and business and life almost, that really rub off on your people and set those standards higher than if you were to do that remotely or via Zoom, right? You forget to tell people about the things that you've done, but them just hearing it organically just helps to set those standards that you're trying to and want to impart in your team and how you operate as a person, right? As an owner, as a manager. So having your team there and hearing those moments that are really, really hard to recreate or do that unorganically, but them just hearing you be who you are, all that's going to rub off on them and hopefully, ideally, impart those values onto your team. Not everyone's going to do it. Not everyone's going to be that fit for your team, for your values, and operate like you. But if you can get them 80, 90% of the way there, that's going to be really, really awesome for you and your whole organization. So guys, that's going to be this episode of the Construction Corner podcast. Until next time.